We have some big news coming in. Mohammad Siraj was once again subjected to abuses from a section of the crowds in Brisbane during the opening day of the fourth test. Siraj was fielding at the boundary when he was allegedly called a bloody grub from a group of people sitting in the stands. Sydney Morning Herald and even Washington has quoted a spectator that Siraj and Sundar were both called bloody grub by a group of persons. Remember, Siraj was subject to racial abuses during the Sydney test as well, when he was called monkey and brown dog and whatnot. The spectators were then thrown out of the stadium. The Indian team made an official complaint. At that point, not much of a reaction that we got from Cricket Australia, but eventually with India's BCCI stepping up and pushing for a formal statement and action to be taken. Here, the spectators for the next time were thrown out of the stadium immediately. But here we understand that this is a third time again Mohammad Siraj and Sundar abused on the field in Brisbane, where they were called bloody grub, and newspapers there have actually mentioned it. Here is Washington Herald, Morning Herald and Washington both mentioning bloody grub being used as racial abuse there on the grounds in Brisbane. Rahul joining us for more details on that. Rahul, here papers there in Brisbane actually mentioning racial abuse made at Mohammad Siraj and Sundar. What more do we know? Is Cricket Australia or anybody for that matter really taking this seriously? Was the person who actually abused our cricketers thrown out of the stadium like they did in Sydney?
Well, as of now, I believe they have not been identified. Had they been identified, they should have been thrown out, or the Indian players have not officially. At this point in time, we are not aware if the Indian players have made an official complaint as they did during the Sydney test. Now, what we are getting to know is through a newspaper report, that is Sydney Morning Herald, that Washington Sundar and Mohammad Siraj were called bloody grubs. That's insects basically. So this is what we know. They've quoted a spectator. How reliable this is, but definitely if Sydney Morning Herald, we know, is a very credible newspaper, and they were there. They were there as journalists. They have spotted a spectator. Now we have to see if the Indian players have made an official complaint. As the day progresses, we will definitely get to know something from Australia, from Brisbane, from the Gabba test, because Washington Sundar was there for the press conference, for the post-match, in fact the post-day press conference today, and these questions were not asked, and Sundar also did not mention anything about this episode. Maybe this is a development, and Australia, will have to check from Australia if the Indian team has made any official complaint, because last time, if you remember, Nabila, on the fourth day during the Sydney test, Indian players there and then asked the umpires, reported the matter to the umpires, and those 6 people were chucked out of the stadium from Sydney. And here at Gabba, the players have not complained to the umpires so far, and accordingly, the action was not taken. But we have to see if they do during the course of day, if they do report the matter to the match referee or to the on-field umpires. But the matter has to be taken up by the match referee, and accordingly, they will have to see if what action they take on the second day of this Gabba test, and if the people have been identified. Will they be if they are identified, will they be allowed the next morning? That remains to be seen, Nabila.
So you're saying Cricket Australia so far hasn't given out an official statement on that. Abuses have been coming in even in the Sydney test. Those reports came in where he was called a brown dog, a monkey and whatnot. Mohammad Siraj has been subject to enough of racial abuses, and BCCI, even though filing a formal complaint, we didn't see a very proactive response from Cricket Australia.
Well, Nabila, you're right. You know, all the players, all these years after what happened in Sydney, you know, a lot of former players also came out in open. They said this has been happening for ages. Every time they tour Australia, they are subjected to these kind of abuses. But this is what happens in Australia for all these years. And Cricket Australia the other day, after what happened in Sydney, apologized. They said we are very sorry for what has happened there, and they threw out those 6 people. But what can be done? Can they actually ban the stadium? At most, what can be done is you take the pictures of those individuals who are abusing, and put out those pictures in the public domain or outside the venue. That's it, because nothing else can be done. You can't ban the stadium. So, but the problem has to be dealt with, in fact, by the ICC. But you have to see where exactly this happens. But if you speak to the Indian players, current or former players, this is what happens in Australia. When you tour Australia, when you tour England, when you tour South Africa, these people get drunk, start right in the morning from the first session, and by the evening session, by tea time, they are completely sloshed, and that is when they start abusing the players.
So we've seen a clear pattern there. That's what you're trying to say. We've seen a clear pattern across the series of matches in various countries, for that matter. And you're right. What max can be done? I think the only thing that the cricket bodies can do here is to intensify their vigil, make sure that cameras are pointed out to crowds enough so that if a person is actually making some comments or abuses, he or she could be highlighted immediately, and he must be fined, implicated, a punishment must be given out, and once a case is filed, it should take precedence, and from there there'll be some kind of deterrent across.
Well, that's right. I don't know if those 6 people who were identified in Sydney were any legal charges pressed against them. We don't know. You don't know. Who knows that if legal charges were pressed against them? In Australia, if you randomly racially abuse somebody, legal charges can be pressed against that individual.
Absolutely.
But why were the legal charges not pressed against those 6 gentlemen who were abusing the Indian players that day?
Which is why we're demanding for Cricket Australia to be a lot more proactive. This is not done. In fact, Sydney Herald in the papers really must bring embarrassment to the Australian government. They were quick to point out our cricketers for allegedly flouting COVID protocols in place, but here is the Australian team, and of course this is a matter of legality where the government must step in and ensure safety of our Indian players who are playing on their field. Thank you very much, Rahul, for bringing us those details. Here's another attempt of racist abuses hurled at Mohammad Siraj and Washington Sundar at the Brisbane grounds, and now Australian papers taking it up, highlighting this issue.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.